Hi, everyone. We're here at the NCIHC Annual Congress, the first in-person event since COVID, and I'm so excited to have this group from Cross-Cultural Communications here with us. And I'm just going to ask you to each introduce yourselves because it's less boring than me giving off the list of names. But bye from Eliana Lobo for now. Hello from...
Hello, Eliana. My name is John. Thanks so much for having us. We're thrilled. We're thrilled to be here at this conference. My name is John, director with CCC, lifetime interpreter, certified interpreter. Excited, honored, thrilled to be part of this profession and to work with this group.
Hi, my name is Analia. I am the manager of training and curriculum at Cross-Cultural Communications. I have been a community interpreter since 2005, so 20 years ago. And I love being able to convey the passion to other interpreters about the changes, the significant impact that we have in the community. Thank you.
Awesome. I'm Zach Williams. I'm the e-learning manager here at Cross-Cultural Communications. I kind of fell into interpreting. Language access and interpreting wasn't a part of my life much growing up, but have been very thrilled to be here and to learn more about the field and to grow together with everyone here. So I am more of kind of the back end. So I work with our online platforms, our learning management system, and our course development, specifically self-paced courses.
And I think that's critical, right? Because we have books, publications. We work with over 100 colleges and universities. And so those books become trainings. They become either in-person trainings, live trainings, curriculums, and then they become self-paced, which is, again, you guys. And so that's a critical way because there's only so many trainers out there. There is a need to sort of stamp it out. And so in a lot of ways, the foundational training is a fantastic option across the board, just to provide more training to more interpreters so we get more people certified.
And I applaud your efforts in publishing textbooks and content and webinars and trainings, because we just, as a profession, suffered a major blow with the closing of what used to be known as the Monterey Institute in Northern California that offered master's and bachelor's degrees in interpreting and translation. And they're closing their doors for the interpreting side and maintaining a certificate program only for translation. And that hurts my heart because we need more, not less. And before we continue,
Liliana, I am a global citizen. I am a EU Parliament Conference interpreter. I moved to the US and I started working as a healthcare interpreter, and I loved it. I love it so much that I want to help everyone have a chance to voice their needs. I want to promote language access, and this platform is amazing because with what I do at CCC, which is I create the self-paced courses. Zach here is my tech wizard. He makes it all look fancy and great, but this is an amazing calling, and I'm so honored to be a part of it.
And tell us, you also have a daughter, right?
Yes, I am a mother. I have a daughter who is 10, who was born deaf. She wears hearing aids, and we are part of the spoken deaf community. My daughter speaks 3 spoken languages despite being deaf, and that has definitely shaped my career. It has shaped the way I navigate language access. It has shaped the way with NCIHC, through the PERC, the policy committee, right? I draft public responses and I try to shape legislation in the benefit of our population, of our communities.
Thank you.
that's great. Well, speaking to trying to shape legislation, let's talk about how we can make the changes that we want to see happen. Despite our challenges at the federal level, I think I have witnessed most of the really innovative, out-of-the-box thinking at the community level, at the parks level, at the PTA meetings, at the town hall meetings, where people realize, look, we have this community that is unable to fully participate. How do we make the access more equitable for everyone that lives in our neighborhood, our community, our town? And there have been some really innovative and I would say precedent-setting legislation at the small level. And that's what I really want interpreters to think about. What can I do in my community? Who can I connect with in my community that I don't have connections with yet, but that could help me advance this goal to make this PTA meeting more accessible for the parents for whom English is not the first language, to make this parks display of where the life-saving equipment is, or the flotation devices when you rent a canoe, or any of the things. I was struck when I was in Europe at how well they do that QR code on the wall, and they don't even need someone at the museum to explain what it is, or at the castle to tell you when it was built, or at the McDonald's or at the restaurant that comes in 14 different translated versions. It's right there with the technology, and it's available to you. So what do you think we, in the little small ways, individual ways, it's like throwing rocks in the pond, those ripples spread out and connect. What are some of the projects that you think we could be working on? And some of that has to do with the self-paced learning that you have available.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. Thank you for that question, Eliana. I'm sure the group has a lot to offer. For me, when I think about it, I always go back. Sofia Garcia Bayaret, one of the authors on the Community Interpreter, wrote this incredible article years ago. And just getting at trying to wrestle with what you're talking about, the social impact of interpreting. What is the social impact of interpreting? And ultimately, we go through this process. All societies are more or less driven by identities. And frequently it's identities that drive conflict within society. You have one identity in conflict with another identity. But if you probe and probe deeper, what is it the community interpreter, the interpreter in general does? They get at what's most universal in all of us, which is the desire to communicate. That is core to every person, to be understood and to understand, to have communicative autonomy. It's only the human interpreter that could ever really understand. So it's only the human interpreter that can lend that communicative autonomy and that language access. And that's the core. That's the core of what we do. So then how do we actually make concrete progress? Ultimately, it's one conversation at a time. I think of the staff interpreters in health systems, the dual role employees in educational settings, the community interpreters going out to meetings, and their ability to more or less articulate and convey to all the stakeholders, informally, in conversations, the value of what an interpreter does. I don't want to hog it too much, but I think it gets back to, those informal conversations. Everyone thinks interpreting is easy because they're bilingual or trilingual or how many languages they speak, but as soon as you put them in that seat and you ask them to interpret, they realize there's so many.
This is harder than I thought.
Okay, well, I love training, and
We noticed.
and there is nothing more rewarding than knowing that those that were trained into how to be a professional interpreter, they are making a difference. So last year we had a client, and it's okay to share the name, a Kansas University Medical Center. They came to CCC and they wanted 2 cohorts to be trained. So we trained them into how to be a community interpreter. Now, their employees are community health workers. This year, this same group came back to us and is like, Analia, we want 2 more trainings, but we want to share a video that we made. And I was very humbled, but very excited to see what the end product from these interpreters, what these training interpreters, what they learned. Long story short, Kansas, this state did a state survey, and they realized that they didn't have enough Spanish-speaking interpreters, especially in the rural areas. And so they decided, okay, we need to send some bilingual employees to take the training. So they shared with us that before they took our training, foundational training, what they do was just summarize, okay? So they omitted a lot of information, and that now they are able to actually facilitate a true exchange of communication between one party and the other one. Something else, they were so proud to know, now we know how to have a professional introduction. They were not introducing themselves, to know how to intervene. So they went back to their communities and are providing that service. We also heard about the providers saying that not having a qualified trained interpreter was a huge barrier because they didn't even know what to say, and if what they conveyed was completely conveyed in the way that they said it. So to me, it was so gratifying to see the impact in the communities, but in the rural areas, that people were getting the help in communicating to a provider and the provider with the client in the way that they deserve. So I just love stories like that, where a client comes back a year later and said, look at what this training already did.
And that just shows the importance of forging new alliances where previously none existed, because there can't be growth if there is no relationship,
Yes.
right? So I think we are at a point, a pivotal point, especially with the advent and the push, the hard push towards having AI substitute the human interpreter for everything, that we need to be making more of those connections
Yes.
with people that work in our profession and outside our profession, in particular the tech world. Not so much the salesmen, but the people who develop the technology, the applications. We need to have more of these one-on-one conversations in order for there to be enlarged consciousness of the importance and the value of being able to fully understand and fully express yourself back and forth, even though you don't speak the language of the counterpart in the room, whatever that language pair may be. So how can we advance that goal? We need to make some new friends.
Yes. And Liliana, I know, I was thinking about you.
So I think as interpreters, we need to eventually leave our comfort zone and see AI more as a cognitive scaffolding and not a replacement. I think we need to learn how to implement AI and to enhance our workflow, how to benefit from it, and how to reduce our workload. For example, we can research terminology in 5 minutes now, what I used to take hours. I established terminological databases medically, specifically, and it took me hours for a term. Nowadays, it takes me 30 minutes. I also know what I'm doing, so I'm faster. But by implementing that and integrating critical thinking and fostering the critical thinking, interpreters will notice how they will have more time to ask questions that AI cannot answer. Like, for example, what cultural factors affect how patients express pain? We need to focus on our growth. We need to focus on our awareness. we talk about deliberate practice. Anadia is an amazing trainer, and she introduces this framework that allows interpreters to kind of test themselves, record yourself, give yourself feedback. Reflective practice. I am talking tomorrow about how we could use AI to improve our skills. Obviously, there's a lot to improve. I personally have a ritual, and it's a very strict ritual because I do need to maintain a few languages. So on Mondays, I parrot or shadow, as we call it, in Europe, German radio hosts. I sometimes record myself and see how fast I went, see where I'm lacking at. I think it's important to just step out of our comfort zone, accept AI, give it a chance, learn how we can use it to improve our workflow, our abilities to enhance our skills, because it is here to stay. And I do believe in dialogue is the place of synergy. So what you were saying, we need to connect with people. Tomorrow, actually, CCC is going to launch a WhatsApp group called the Cross-Cultural Communication Exchange, where our goal is to bring interpreters together. We are trying to create shared excellence. The Ubuntu philosophy says, I will not be able to say it the same way because I have a translation in my head right now and the interpreter needs an interpreter. But we all individually contribute to the success of the collective. So the idea is to come together with questions, to mentor younger interpreters if you're a more seasoned interpreter, to answer questions. We will have triannual meetings, like virtual cafes, where CCC staff will sit down with interpreters from around the world, since it seems like our audience is really international as they come. And I think it is very, very important to keep an open mind, and we are going to help as much as we can. We are going to upload some resources, actually a multilingual library of prompts, because if AI prompts. So if you've already started using AI, you will notice that AI prompting, prompt engineering is extremely important. AI, you have to see it as a baby with a lot of strength, but absolutely no brain cells. So you are the one who gives AI the brain cells. It does not understand, despite making you feel like it understands you and it sees you. It does not. It is all just
It's truly just a tool.
Just an
Only
algorithm.
A human can actually comprehend the situation, comprehend what someone's conveying, and understand what the situation means. Absolutely, no, and I didn't mean to cut you off. We only have one microphone. So.
No, we also, we also have to understand that AI does not replace, and actually to go back to another point that you brought up, Microsoft brought out a study a couple of weeks ago that shows that AI cannot fully replace any job, none, because they are not complete. AI cannot fulfill a job 100% of the time at 100%. So that is very important. It is important to recognize that the human judgment is the connective glue.
A human could understand when they're going to operate on the wrong leg. AI is never going to understand the implications of what that means, right? Or the fact that yesterday the patient said they were allergic to penicillin, and today they seem to have forgotten AI is not going to understand. That's strictly doing analysis. It is strictly, at the end of the day, just ones and zeros. There's something in the human, in language and understanding, that is just going to transcend what we can create with software.
And AI isn't there yet. As
It'll
the parent,
never, I'll be controversial. It's okay to have an opinion. I don't think it'll ever be possible to create a sentient being out of ones and zeros. That for some reason today, that is a little bit controversial. But I think it's okay and it's reasonable to say, to create a sentient being out of ones and zeros, is a little bit of a stretch. So.
As the parent of someone on the spectrum, my son has Asperger's, I often refer to the automated AI interpreter as an autistic interpreter because they are very literal. Desk is, escrivaninha, and chair is cadeira. But nuance, where is that? Reading the room, where is that? Understanding an expression that indicates confusion, where is that? Because that alters how the human interpreter shapes these subsequent interactions and helps drive the provider towards offering more plain language explanation or pausing to check for understanding, things that AI would not know if not prompted to do so. But I do say the same thing to my students that I used to say when they were afraid of video remote interpreting, because I've been doing this a long time, and we introduced video remote interpreting in 2008 when I was at Harborview Medical Center and trained the interpreters. Everyone was afraid, or 90% were afraid that they were going to lose their jobs, and 10% were upset, like, oh, now I have to have good hair and nice makeup. I was like, trust me, no one's really looking at whether you're wearing eyeshadow. But the concerns were bigger than the actual experience of working in VRI. And we worked with the concerns of the interpreters who said, I like moving around the hospital. We have a big campus, multiple buildings. I like walking a lot during the day. I don't want to be stuck in front of a terminal for my entire shift. So we broke it up, and they worked 2 half days per week in video remote interpreting, and the rest of the time they were all over the campus. So, but that's an exchange that I don't think AI would have thought to ask. So there's a lot of possibilities with AI, but the difference now is that nobody sitting at the AI development table is inviting us to the table. And I think we need to bring our own chair and just sit at the table.
Agreed. And I think the fact they're not inviting, I would say, anyone, and not to just gang up on AI. They're not inviting any
anyone.
of the professions because, well, this isn't a technical discussion, but AI is always oversold. My experience from prior lifetimes is that they feel from a distance they can automate any role. But it's when you actually get into the role that you realize the complexity of what's going on. And there's ultimately nothing more complex than trying to convey what is being communicated by the
So I
patient.
agree with what you said, Eliana, in terms of interpreters shouldn't fear AI. They should get to know it, because the more familiar and capable you are with the new technology, the more desirable
The more you can speak to its feature functionality.
you are as
and
somebody
its
to be hired.
limitations.
Yes.
And not only the limitations, how the limitations manifest in patient health outcomes. What are all, if we focus on AI, what are all the tests, let's say it's AI, what are all the tests that are ordered that shouldn't have been ordered or that weren't ordered? What are all the patient readmissions that increase just because of the use, let's say, of not focusing, what I'm trying to get at, not focusing on, people get away from focusing on the core of the profession, which is language access.
I just wanted to quickly add, I love airplane conversations. So I so happened to have sat next to an editor and a linguist in the US Army who speaks Korean and interprets Korean and Russian. And so we were talking about it. I was telling them that I'm going to be here today. And he actually brought up an amazing point. He compared AI interpreting to the dilemma they had a decade ago with manned guns or unmanned guns, like drones. I don't know the terminology, so don't quote me on any of it, but it's like you cannot compare a pilot's instinct to a drone. I feel the same about us interpreters. We know how to read the room. And I think it's important for us to not only become aware of our biases and all of that, the humanity inside of us, but also open up, take a course. We're here. The whole goal of this new WhatsApp community is for us to deconstruct or dismantle the silos, because we work in silos as interpreters. Unless you're a staff interpreter, you don't have anyone to talk to. You don't debrief. And what's new for you may be ancient history for someone else.
Exactly.
And it is very important to come to the table and ask questions. I think we also need to understand that we may not have the answers, and that's okay, but we need to remain curious about this. We cannot shut it down, and we can also not fully adopt it, because we can become dependent. So
Thank you, Eliana. No, that's excellent.
I'm done.
No, talk to us, Zach. Sorry, I was thinking.
What do you wish somebody would ask you?
What do I wish someone would ask me? I wish someone would ask me what we can do more to be learners, right? So as the e-learning special manager with Liliana and other subject matter experts, right, we're always looking to build new courses, right? And maybe this is one we do, right? Maybe we start looking at AI and what we can do. I think one of the great things about self-paced learning, we were talking earlier about how can we make those little ripples, right? We see a lot of big organizations come through that want to teach our curriculum, whether that's sending someone through our training of trainers so they can have someone on staff who can train their interpreters, or also just sending as many people as possible through our self-paced learning. But then a huge portion of our learner base is also just individuals who are starting a new career or starting a second career, right? Who are just learning about this language access and how they can take those language skills that they have and their cultural experience and turn that into a service for their community. Right. So I think, the more that we can get feedback on what the community needs, right, the better we can serve you. Right. And I think that's what we want to be doing. We want to be pushing the profession forward. We want to be making interpreting something that is really as valuable as we know it is, right? So that everybody understands that. Right. So anything that we can do to help push that forward is something that we would like to pursue.
Sounds like a good idea. A course that would teach interpreters different tactics and strategies that they can utilize AI to facilitate their work, whether it's looking up new terminology on the fly or running captions on a separate screen so that you don't have to ask someone to repeat themselves. You can go back and glance as they are going through a very long statement, or there's more, but I think that's up to you guys to try to figure out what will the chapters of that learning module look like. And I'm really excited to hear more about that. I'm also excited that your interpreters group is going to be on WhatsApp, because the United States, for whatever reason, is not using WhatsApp, but the rest of the world is not using Messenger or Facebook, or the rest of the world is using WhatsApp in the EU and in Central and South America. That's what everyone uses. So that's a way, I think, to make more connections, because it'll be easy for people outside the U.S. to join the conversation, and it's a benefit to those in the U.S. to learn how to use WhatsApp.
Absolutely.
Which is not rocket science, by the way.
No.
Absolutely. So, what else?
How does this feed into specialized certifications for interpreters? For a long time, we've been wishing for them, but it just, everything takes longer than you want it to take, especially if you're going to do a good job and create a quality, fill in the blank, exam, certification, test, course. But we are at the point now where, with CCHI's proficiency testing of the core CHI, that we could, I think, begin to look at specific areas, whether it's palliative care and end of life, or interpreting for spiritual care, or interpreting with AI assistance, or something else. Like, what types of certifications would you like to see healthcare interpreters be able to specialize in. Pediatric is one that the managers of programs are often asking for.
Yeah, no, absolutely. There's so much need ultimately across the board. And I think as a profession, we find ourselves just trying to get people to make the switch to see the impact of language access, that it's easy to get kind of consumed by that. But for the profession to advance, of course, we need more and more specializations. One of the things that sort of tends to get people on board is something we do a lot at CCC is, the one-day introduction to community interpreting for bilingual staff. So we do this a lot for community health workers. And that more or less gets them in the door for any bilingual staff to have some basic training to comprehend what it is that an interpreter does, to be able to do some of the interpreting while a professional interpreter arrives. That, what we found, creates internal advocates for interpreting for language access, because they go through a training, be it 1 day or 2 day, and they feel through the exercises, through the curriculum, that this is a lot more complex. There's a lot more to it. And there's many ways to derail the conversation. Yeah.
Okay, so I have stories because I've been facilitating those one-day introduction to a community interpreter. And when you have this bilingual staff, when we talk about the code of ethics and talk about adhering to HIPAA, and we talk about how you're responsible for being accurate and complete, they realize, just like what John said, wow, it is a lot that I need to, there is a huge responsibility. And if I don't adhere to accuracy and completeness and impartiality and role boundaries, I don't have a professional introduction, or I violate HIPAA.
I interpret something
Yes.
I don't understand.
Right. Oh, if I misinterpret something, like we go back to what's Willie Ramirez, right? That's just one example. But the thing is, I instill the fear of God in them. I do.
As we should.
As
Because
we
it's someone
should.
else's voice.
Somebody else's life, now they get evicted from their housing because the bilingual staff didn't know how to communicate correctly and summarized. So anyway, the work that the interpreter does is critical if we do it right. So anyway, I just wanted to share that story because I get people like, wow, I don't know if I want to interpret anymore. I say, well,
It's scary.
But on the other side of the spectrum, right? To sort of more or less highlight the human element, I always come back to, staff interpreters probably have a million examples like this. A patient at a hospital years ago, rare Southeast Asian language. They're in the ICU. I see them day after day. They're just not responding to any devices, and they're getting worse. And I'm thinking to myself, this person is going to pass away, because I see them declining, going from a general unit to the ICU unit to seclusion, and they're just going further, sort of further away, if you will. Finally, because they're not responding to the device, to the VRI device, finally we get an in-person. And the gentleman walks in, and just being able to convey, there's something about language and culture that is deeply hardwired into our identity as humans, and recognizing someone who just has that so profoundly familiar to us. Just seeing the patient for the first time in weeks respond. And they turned that corner, and it was a young gentleman. And lo and behold, started to improve, and it was a human interpreter that did it.
Human to human connection. Can't really substitute it with an app.
I'll tell another story, maybe a little more humorous. So I think if you don't know, we hold monthly webinars, right? And we want you to join those, right? We do those completely free. We get CEUs. It's something we're doing to just try and help the community. But we talk about specializations of medical interpreting. I think it's very easy for interpreters, and speaking as someone who is not an interpreter, but who has seen and interacted with interpreters for years now, the traumatic experiences that can happen within hospitals, right? And how traumatic that can be. And I got to see that kind of firsthand from the tech point of view, right? We upload these videos to YouTube for the community, right? So even after the webinar is done, you can go, our whole backlog of webinars is available for everyone to watch. This particular one, they talked about some of that trauma that interpreters do really experience in hospitals, the vicarious trauma, right? And as part of that, they showed some pretty graphic images, right? So from a tech perspective, we had to throw on a content warning, and lo and behold, the next day YouTube responds, yes, this is, we're going to make this mature audiences only, right? But that's a real thing that interpreters are experiencing. And if you're not prepared for that, that can be such a hard thing to deal with.
And staff interpreters at least have the benefit of safe people to debrief with, anyone on the care team, their supervisor, a colleague that they don't disclose the identity, but just say, today was really hard. I lost a patient I've been working with a long time, blah, blah, blah. The family was crying and I was crying. But that lone wolf independent contractor working from home, what can we do to support them? And that WhatsApp group is a start. There needs to be places like the National Council, like your WhatsApp group, where lone wolf independent contractors can meet other folks, and they are no longer in a silo, they're in a group, and they can share do's and don'ts or workarounds or strategies for difficulties in the workplace or difficult situations they've interpreted for.
I just want to add to your point and say that that's a universal thing. I feel like here in the US specifically, the lone wolf identity is very pursued after, and it's just taught. And it's so sad because we do need a village at the end of the day. We are social beings. We need to rely on other people. Like, deliberate practice, reflective practice can't happen alone. And the goal here is to bring people together. And hey, in Europe, we have this thing I love, and I haven't found any website here, like a program that happens in the same way. We do tandem learning. I speak German, you speak Japanese. We meet and have coffee. Today I pay and I speak German to you, and next time you pay and you speak Japanese to me. And we learn from one another, and we correct each other, and we give feedback to one another. We need to promote that attitude more here amongst interpreters, especially in the given context of AI, politics, just the fear that is in the air. I think it's just important to come together and break all the walls, climb over all the egos, and just come together and talk. And just obviously be cordial. Don't be rude or anything, but come and ask us questions. We will do our best to respond. We will be there for you. And I think we need that. We need to dismantle those silos.
And Liliana, tomorrow, the NES, National Ethics Standards Work Group, we're going to share about the findings that we have got for the last year. But one of the things that we heard over and over when we were having the virtual focus groups, that people just came on their own, over 130 interpreters. What we heard in every single focus group, thank you for having a time where we can come together and share our challenges, our experience, what is important for us, what we need from our employers, what we need in a code of ethics and in the values and the standards of practice and the principles, because we're not being heard. So that whole sense of being heard, and that we are stronger when we are together. So a voice.
Yes. We who give the
Exactly.
voice to others
Yes.
need to come together to promote our own voice.
Exactly.
No, I think that's a wonderful way of summarizing it. I mean, I think CCC, NCIHC, we're just one resource of many, but ultimately what we're all trying to do is move the profession forward and serve. Who are we serving? We're serving primarily the freelance interpreter and the staff interpreter at the hospitals because they're day to day in the trenches doing the interpreting. And my heart, I always think of, I work with freelance interpreters. I always think of the freelance interpreter that is just going from assignment to assignment, be it on video or in the field or a mix of both.
With hardly any context,
And
normally.
being thrown into situations and you're interpreting things like, get your affairs in order. And
languages of lesser diffusion interpreters.
absolutely. No, and they're in field. And, sometimes just the image of the independent freelance interpreter having a good cry in their car afterwards because of what they just encountered. All I can say is, we're with you. No one's alone. There's a ton of resources. But encountering that day after day is a burden. And I think interpreters do need to reach out and realize there is a community that just wants to hear you and see you.
I think as a footnote, there's also room for us to train providers on how to partner with interpreters. Over and over. Can't we make this be part of the requirement while you're in med school, before you become an intern or a resident? And can we develop something that they can use? The one that used to be very effective, but of course, the doctors that spearheaded this effort are now retired, and given the climate, it hasn't happened the last few years, was they used to hire at University of Washington a group of ASL interpreters to dress up in white coats and be the providers, but talk only in ASL and bring the med students in to explain what was going on. Meanwhile, there's all these conversations going on around them. They have no idea what anyone is saying. To just give them the taste for that one afternoon that everyone who participated said, that really stuck with me in a way that changed their outlook, that changed their perspective, that changed how they moved, the actions that they took going forward. We need to standardize something like that and get it out there for providers coming into the field to be ready to take on the challenge. The world keeps getting smaller. The conflicts don't go away. People arrive from new places all the time. In my state, Washington, it's Dari and Pashto right now that are the go-tos that nobody has. When I arrived 20 years ago, it was Marshallese that we couldn't find in Tongan. But now the worm has turned, the world has turned, the events have happened, and there's no good resources out there for Dari and Pashto. There's no medical dictionary in either language for someone to take on the job of translating into English. So how do they find the terminology that they need? How do we train them? Because we need them. So the challenges continue to expand, but I think we can sort of chink the holes as we find them so that the med schools are turning out more culturally competent physicians and that we are turning out certified, better trained interpreters with ways to connect with each other as a way to, what's the expression? The rising tide lifts all boats. Everybody come up together and we'll do a better job in this whole being heard, understanding language access challenge in healthcare.
I think in a utopian world, that would be awesome and still pursuable. But what we had at our hospital, for example, we had new employee orientation where our language access coordinator would go and present for 20 minutes. And I think if every language access coordinator at every hospital does that, because people come and go, There's always new providers. There's this doctor who is so intuitive and has such bedside manners and knows how to work perfectly with an interpreter. And then there's the other doctor who it's like, have you graduated med school or kindergarten? Because yeah. So I think we can start there. We can just connect with hospitals, connect with language access coordinators, and start there. Start small, but I think it's still a huge difference. It did at our hospital for sure, because people would recognize us. Oh, you're the interpreter.
Yep.
Cool. So happy to have you. But it's an over and over again. Every 2 weeks, we would go to the new employee orientation, and
That's
we
really
would
helpful.
speak.
Anyone with direct access to patients, whether they're just wheeling them around or drawing blood or whether they're actually part of their healthcare team, needs that orientation just to have the awareness, that seed of awareness planted. Yeah.
Yeah, you don't know what you don't know, right? We
Exactly.
say that a lot in our company, right? We're a small company, and we know that we don't know a lot of things, right? So it's just making those little ripples so that people start learning what they don't know.
Well, and little ripple here and a little ripple there, and before you know it, it joins up and you got a big ripple and then you got a wave, and then you're in Nazaré surfing the 100-meter waves.
Praying you come out alive.
Exactly, but that's all we can do. You've got to, each of you out there, make your little ripple and make an effort to connect with somebody else in the industry. And my big ask, if you have a family member, a spouse, a colleague that's gone in a different direction and is working in tech, try to get some connections started. If we stay isolated from each other, it's going to take that much longer for us to unite and do a better job. And who benefits from better language access? All of us.
Time is of essence. Time is definitely
time
of
is
essence.
now.
Time is now. Things are moving very fast. We can barely catch up with what's going on in tech. We need to speed up our game as interpreters. I know some of us do not like technology, and it's fine, but we need to dedicate that time. We need to get out of our comfort zones, and we need to learn and be curious. Stay curious and ask questions, and also tell us how we can help you. I think that's important.
Exactly. So I hope that whoever views this conversation, pieces or all of it, will contribute their ideas, their suggestions, or some names of contacts in the tech world. Thanks, everybody, for being with us today. Does anyone
Thank
have
you,
any
Liliana.
closing remarks that they would like to make?
Thank you, Eliana. No, I think it all goes back to we're all in this together. The interpreting community is one community. We're one resource of many good resources, but the individual interpreter, the trainer, the leaders in the field, it's on all of us to continue to focus on professionalizing, raising the standard across the board. No interpreters alone. There's resources out there. Everyone, we're here to support you.
Everyone counts or nobody counts.
That's right.
Thank you, everyone, for being here today. Thank you, our tech person.
It's our new kid on the block.